Can you imagine waking up one day to find your city split in half, your friends and family on the other side of a colossal concrete barrier, and your entire way of life fundamentally altered? The fall of the Berlin Wall wasn't just a historical event, it was the crescendo of decades of tension, fear, and hope. What drove a city to such an extreme division? What sparked the events that led to its stunning reunification? And, perhaps most intriguingly, how did this moment change the narrative of a nation and the world forever? Stay with us, and you'll discover how a wall that once symbolized oppression became a testament to resilience, unity, and the indomitable spirit of freedom. To truly appreciate the gravity of the Berlin Wall's fall, we must first step back in time. Picture Berlin in the late 1940s, just a few years after the devastation of World War II. The city, once vibrant and full of culture, lay in ruins, divided by the scars of war and divided ideologically as the Cold War began to shape global dynamics. The Allies had divided Berlin into 4 zones: British, American, French, and Soviet. But the ideological rift between East and West soon tightened, signaling a profound transformation for Germany and the world at large. By 1949, tensions escalated as the Soviet Union sought to tighten its control over East Berlin, marking the beginning of a stark separation. East Germany, formerly known as the German Democratic Republic, was established as a socialist state under the influence of the Soviet Union. Oppression was rampant, dissent was silenced, and the citizens of East Berlin soon found themselves living in a regime that strictly controlled their thoughts, movements, and lives. Meanwhile, West Berlin thrived as a beacon of democracy, attracting those yearning for freedom and opportunity. Imagine the frustration of East Berliners as they looked across the city to their Western counterparts enjoying life's freedoms. Can you feel the sparks of discontent igniting? Fast forward to August 13, 1961. In the early hours, a well-orchestrated operation began. Barbed wire was hastily rolled out along the border, and by afternoon, concrete segments were being erected. The once free-flowing city suddenly found itself cut into 2 sections. Families were torn apart, and a city was divided. The wall wasn't just a physical barrier, it represented fear, oppression, and a refusal to acknowledge a shared humanity. Have you ever wondered how something that seemed so unimaginable could become a reality overnight? The stark contrast between life in East and West Berlin only deepened. In the West, a thriving capitalist system featured vibrant street markets, booming industries, and the explosive cultural revolution of the 1960s. People thrived, art flourished, and hope was palpable. Conversely, the East imposed rigorous travel restrictions, quashing any aspirations of a free life. The environment was bleak, people endured a continuous lack of basic freedoms. In this tense backdrop, the dim reality of life behind the wall began, where whispers of discontent shrouded the air. Yet, even amid the absurdity of the division, the flames of rebellion burned brightly. Over the years, numerous East Germans attempted the dangerous journey to the West, risking everything to escape their reality. To understand the human spirit's resilience, ponder this: more than 5,000 successful escapes were recorded, with the tragic losses of about 140 lives who fell victim to the oppressive regime. What drove these individuals to face such life-threatening risks? One word: hope. As the years passed, the narrative of East Berlin was dominated by oppressive rule and surveillance. The secret police, known as the Stasi, subjected the population to constant monitoring, undermining trust among citizens. Dissent was met with brutal crackdowns, leading to a culture of fear. However, cracks in the facade of absolute control began to show. In the late 1980s, a wave of protests swept across Eastern Europe, fueled by desires for reform and the winds of change from perestroika and glasnost initiated by Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union. People began questioning the oppressive regimes that oversaw their lives. Could change be possible? They asked, their hearts racing with the thrill of possibility. With every protest, with every chant for freedom, the East Berliners grew bolder. They watched in awe as their neighbors in Poland organized massive strikes and uprisings. Could the same happen to them? Fueled by a growing sense of unity, the citizens of East Berlin began to draw their strength from each other. History shows that when people stand together for a common cause, the impossible often becomes possible. The seas of change were rising, and the tide was turning. On November 9, 1989, a late-night television broadcast from the East German government announced a relaxation of travel restrictions. However, the moment became veiled in confusion, as it was delivered poorly, leading many to believe that borders were completely open. What followed was unexpected. Masses of East Berliners flooded to checkpoints, overwhelming guards who were unprepared for the onslaught. The world watched in anticipation. Could it be? Would this be the night the wall came down? As crowds gathered, the confused guards, overwhelmed and outnumbered, made a fateful decision, not to shoot but to let the people through. Picture it, as the first wave of citizens crossed into West Berlin, joy erupted. The wall, once an insurmountable barrier, was now teetering on the brink of collapse. Citizens climbed the concrete edifice, tearing pieces away as if they were chipping away at their own chains of bondage. The euphoria was intoxicating, electrifying. Happiness washed over the crowd, and elation turned into joyous celebration. It wasn't long before the Eastern and Western Berliners embraced each other. Tears of happiness mixed with sorrow for lost time. The wall, both physically and metaphorically, began to fragment. What comes next will leave you speechless. In the aftermath of that historic night, reactions across the globe were profound. People rejoiced in the streets, not just in Berlin but worldwide. The fall of the Berlin Wall became an emblem of the end of an era, signaling the disintegration of Soviet control over Eastern Europe. A new narrative was unfolding, yet the implications were just beginning to sink in, not just for the people of Germany but for geopolitics as a whole. As the dust settled and the initial euphoria transformed into determination, the path ahead became clear. Reunification would not be as simple as tearing down a wall. The challenges were immense: ideological divides, economic disparity, and cultural differences. East and West had spent nearly 3 decades in an adversarial relationship, and reintegration would require not just the dismantling of a physical barrier but the mending of 2 fractured communities. It's fascinating to consider how a single moment can stir the world into action and catalyze monumental change. The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't just reshape Germany, it redefined the trajectories of nations worldwide, igniting questions of identity, governance, and the very nature of democracy. The world was finally ready to witness how adversity could give rise to unity, and the story was far from over. As we move forward in this tale, we'll delve deeper into the intricate challenges faced during reunification. What were the social, political, and economic implications? How did the people navigate the transition from division to unity? And ultimately, how did this event shape modern Germany and influence the course of global history? Don't go anywhere, as the journey of Berlin is just beginning. Your understanding of unity, resilience, and the lessons of history will reach new heights as we explore what lies ahead. As the dust settled and the initial euphoria transformed into determination, the path ahead for reunited Germany was fraught with challenges. The tears of joy sharing the bittersweet burden of separation opened a floodgate of complexity. The nation now had 2 halves, unaccustomed to each other, yet destined to come together. The monumental task was not only to bring down the physical barrier of the Berlin Wall but also to bridge vast ideological, economic, and cultural divides deeply carved over decades. The excitement of reunification had to be tempered by the realities facing a country that had lived with stark contrast for so long. The political landscape was a tapestry woven with threads of both anxiety and hope. In the immediate aftermath of November 9, 1989, Germany was greeted with skepticism by many leaders and citizens. Critical questions emerged. How would 2 distinct systems reconcile after years of division? What would the process for reunification entail, and who would be responsible for shaping the future? Germany did not operate within a vacuum. Its reunification reverberated throughout Europe, prompting surrounding nations to reassess their place in an evolving geopolitical landscape. The first official step towards reunification came just days after the wall fell. On November 28, 1989, a roundtable conference was formed. This gathering included representatives from East and West Germany, alongside members of various political groups and civic organizations. It marked a pivotal moment in the reunification process, designed to give voice to East Germans and address their demands for democracy and reform. Imagine the energy at these meetings, people who had been silenced for so long now collaborating on new futures. However, as exhilarating as this initial process was, the road ahead would prove to be rocky and tumultuous. Economically, things became chaotic almost immediately. The East German economy, long stagnated under state ownership and central planning, was a ghost of its Western counterpart. Industries were outdated, agriculture was inefficient, and unemployment surged. Inflation spiraled out of control as the two economies collided. The currency union that began in July 1990, which exchanged East German marks for fully convertible Deutsche Marks at a 1-to-1 ratio for salaries and pensions, fundamentally altered the economic landscape but simultaneously drained East Germany's resources. What are we going to do? Many East Germans must have wondered, feeling the weight of uncertainty press down on them. The economic integration process saw the implementation of West Germany's social market economy into the East. Not only did this mean a transition from state-run companies to privatization, it also meant that many East Germans lost their jobs. Businesses shuttered, and unemployment surged from a mere 1% to over 15% in some regions almost overnight. The stark reality of these changes brought heartbreaking turmoil as communities, once tightly knit, experienced disbandment and despair. Meanwhile, the West Germans felt the pinch of the solidarity surcharge, a tax meant to finance the gigantic task of reconstructing the East. Frustrations mounted on both sides, setting the stage for social tensions. Yet, amid this turmoil, a glimmer of resilience emerged. Organizations sprang up to encourage dialogue between East and West Germans. An emphasis on shared history, culture, and aspirations fostered glimpses of unity. Festivals celebrating cultural commonalities began, bridging gaps that had formed through years of division. The iconic Brandenburg Gate, once a symbol of division, became the backdrop for reunifying events, an emblem of hope standing tall against a vibrant skyline of change and progress. Socially, the reunification was a mixed bag. The East German population faced something akin to culture shock. They were thrust into a world that felt foreign, technologically advanced yet emotionally distancing. The freedoms they longed for, while intoxicating and exhilarating, also came with a harsh realization: they were no longer the architects of their lives. Many East Germans grieved the loss of their familiar landscape, plagued by memories of camaraderie, and often uncertain of their place in this new reality. The feeling of displacement echoed in communities. The next few years saw various public protests and debates over the pace of change. The political landscape shifted, with the re-emergence of political parties and movements that had been suppressed for decades. The PDS, Party of Democratic Socialism, a political party that emerged from the remnants of the East German Socialist Party, represented a significant section of the East German populace that continued to identify with their past while seeking to carve an identity in the new Germany. Many of those who once sought refuge in the sprawling landscape of memories found that shifting allegiances became essential as the 1990 federal elections approached. With time, Germany adapted. On October 3, 1990, the fall of the wall culminated in an official political unification. This day, now celebrated as the Day of German Unity, considers the resilient spirit of a nation that had spent decades living in division. Do you remember the international celebration that unfolded? Families reunited, tears of relief flowed freely, and the world bore witness to the triumph of unity over discord and hope over fear. Despite the momentous nature of this event, deep-seated struggles remained. social inequality burgeoned, with an undeniable feeling of resentment towards the new realities that East Germans faced. The notion of Ossi, East German, and Wessi, West German, took on a life of its own, symbolizing divisions that still existed even after the wall had crumbled. Disparities in income, employment opportunities, and social support systems prolonged tensions and left scars in the healed body of Germany. Fast forward into the 21st century, and the ghosts of the wall still linger in cultural consciousness. In urban and rural landscapes, integrating the left-behind regions and fostering their voices became priority agendas for the German government. Policymakers and leaders alike recognized that restoring dignity to the now fractured East would require an earnest, unwavering commitment. Education became central to the solutions proposed, with increasing investments directed toward access to quality education for all citizens, regardless of origin. Germany's evolution post-reunification also led to substantial changes on the global stage, particularly in the European context. The walls of division that had defined not just Germany but a continent began to disintegrate. The reunification of Germany symbolized a seismic shift that nudged Europe closer to unity, prompting a cascade of nations to reckon with their governmental structures and civil liberties. The old divisions between East and West Europe began to fade, setting the stage for the eventual eastward enlargement of the European Union, a notion that still resonates today. However, as we glide into the present, it's essential to question, what lessons can we derive from this narrative of division and reunification? The fall of the Berlin Wall teaches us about resilience. It illuminates the tale of human aspiration and the unyielding quest for freedom. The sacrifices made and the haunting memories endured remind us that while history is fraught with division, the yearning for unity can transcend ideological boundaries. In scrutinizing modern Germany, we find a nation that has emerged from the shadows of its past, grappling with its complex identity while forging a path toward the future. Diversity is no longer merely about territories, it's a tapestry vibrant with cultural identities that continue to reshape the modern German narrative. Germany stands as a testament to the possibility for transformation, where a single act, a riotous protest, a chant for freedom, or an unexpected announcement can irrevocably alter the course of history. As we conclude this journey through the legacy of the Berlin Wall, it becomes clear that the echoes of optimism still reverberate. The reunification journey has served as a beacon of resilience, showcasing how societies can rise from the ashes of division to form anew, stronger than before, embracing diversity and a shared vision for the future. So, the story of the Berlin Wall and its fall reminds us always to stand vigilant, to champion the spirit of inclusivity, and to recognize that the desire for unity is a powerful catalyst capable of reshaping destinies, not just in Germany, but across our interconnected global community. The fall of the Berlin Wall is not merely a chapter in history, it is a philosophy that invites us to envision a world where hope reigns, and where freedom and dignity are not just aspirations but realities. Together, we can strive to build a future that celebrates the beautiful complexities of unity.